Following from the last episode, we are taking a look at more stories about murder. Murderer was in focus last time, and this time the aftermath of a murder is the theme, with a lot more paranormal elements too. In the episode 122, I introduced some theories as what ghosts may be, and the general idea was a violent and sudden death or a strong obsession and remorse makes a spirit linger on and even stuck in the tragic loop. If you missed that episode, by the way, I'll leave the link in the description and at the corner of the screen. If we assume the idea be true, I think it's natural that the scene of a murder be haunted and the spirit of its victim lingering around. That would be exactly today's stories. A tragic scene of a murder repeating itself or a murder victim wandering around. Here are 7 allegedly true stories from Korea about the lingering aftermath at a murder scene. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by host, Anthony. It's a story my private tutor told me. He was 15 then. One summer day, he and his family visited his aunt's house in the countryside. He had a lot of fun splashing around the stream and went straight to bed after dinner. But he woke up in the middle of the night with an achy tummy. He definitely needed to visit the toilet. And as usually the case with an old-fashioned farmhouse, the privy was outside the house. It was pitch dark outside and he felt a bit nervous. Thankfully, the family dog outside was still up and welcomed him. He patted the dog and hopped into the privy. As soon as he sat down, somebody knocked on the door. He wasn't sure what to do while the knocking continued. "It's occupied," he said. The knocking stopped. Gone, he thought. But right next moment, the dog outside started barking ferociously, and then a hand slid in through the bottom gap of the door. My tutor was just frozen and stared at it even without daring to blink. The single hand looked very rough, like that of a farmer or a manual laborer. He didn't know how long the situation dragged, and just as suddenly as it first appeared, the hand slid out. Only then he jumped up and burst open the door. There was nobody outside, and the dog that was barking all the while also suddenly got silent. He was spooked and confused, but anyway went back to bed. In the morning, he asked other family members if any of them knocked on the toilet the previous night, but they all said they didn't. But when he further described about the strange hand, his aunt said, "A few days ago, a dismembered body was found in the village. And you see, they failed to find one hand yet." I happened to meet a retired detective and asked him to tell a scary story from his years on duty. Apparently he had a bit of the third eye, but rather remained a skeptic, but there was this one undeniably strange case. One day he was called in for a murder case. A woman was brutally killed in her own place. The forensics team came, but they didn't find any definitive lead yet. That evening, after a drink with a colleague, he felt the sudden urge to go back to the crime scene. Normally, even the detectives would find it a bit too spooky to visit a murder scene late at night, but he was back there, which was by then all cleaned up. He sat cross-legged in the middle of the room where the murdered woman was found, and focused on who'd have killed the victim. Who? And then, out of blue, a thought came to his mind. The floor? He lifted the floor covering and found an envelope full of money and some memos, which turned out to be the crucial lead. The murderer was the woman's lover. He constantly borrowed money, often with a threat of violence, and so the scared woman hid her money there with a note of how much money her lover had already taken from her. But sadly, that didn't save her life taken by her violent lover in the end. When I was 14 or 15, I and my younger siblings went to visit my aunt's family during the summer vacation. We roamed all around the neighborhood playing and messing about, and after a few days like that, I could find my ways in the area. So one evening, Aunt sent me on an errand to a nearby shop. Not even around the corner from Aunt's place.
Stop it! I said I'm sorry.
Sorry? Yeah, you'd better be.
I heard a man and a woman talking. From the tone, I could easily tell the conversation wasn't a friendly one. I stopped to look at them out of curiosity. A grown man and woman having a quarrel in the public. What a drama.
Are you mad? Put it away! I'm sorry,
Even before the man could finish his sentence, there was this sticky, short, and dull sound, repeating many times. Some drops of warm liquid splashed on my face. The man fell on the ground, revealing the woman standing behind. She was holding a knife that was dripping red, and her face, with that manic smile, was not that of a sane person anymore. I ran for my life. Fortunately, I ran into the police officers on patrol. I don't even remember what I said to them, but I guess my truly terrified face did the talk, and they ran with me to the spot of murder. There wasn't anything. Not even a drop of blood. We checked around the area, but found nothing.
You must have watched one scary film too many,
the officer joked.
No, I really saw. Blood splashed on my face too.
I protested and wiped my face, but not a smudge came off on my hand. Did I hallucinate, or were they ghosts? I was stunned and confused. Police officers were kind at least, and accompanied me back to Aunt's. It was only a few years later, when I got older, that my aunt explained what happened on that street. There lived a couple. The wife seemed to have some sort of Othello syndrome, perpetually suspecting the husband's infidelity. Naturally, hardly a day passed without them having a loud quarrel. The husband came back home later and later, and the wife's hysteria got worse and worse. And one morning, she stabbed the husband's back on his way out to work. I don't know what I saw was the lingering energy of the tragic event, or their spirits keep repeating the scene. Whatever the case, I still can't forget the disgusting smell of blood I felt. I live in Donggu, Ulsan City. It's a famous story among locals here that is rumored to be true, but who knows? There lived a high school student who had to commute for a good 1-2 hours daily. High schools in Ulsan were not standardized, and he went to the school far from home for a better education. One evening, he dozed off on the bus back home and ended up in the terminus. That was the last bus of the day, and it was before the time of mobile phones. He had no other options but walk back home. He took the main 4-lane motorway. It was not the shortest route, but he thought it should be the safer option, it being late night. So started moving his tired steps towards home. He looked back for some bustling noise and saw some black plastic bag seemingly following him. He first thought it should be a litter bag blowing in the wind, but soon realized it was moving not in the direction of the wind, instead constantly towards him. After an hour of walk, he was finally near his home, and the black bag was still after him. He turned back to have one more look. The bag was coincidentally just passing under a street lamp, which allowed him to have a clear look. It wasn't a plastic bag. It was a human head. Its black hair, all soaked and stuck with blood, made it look like a plastic bag in the dark. The boy ran for his life. Fortunately, he ran into his mom, who was out waiting for her son, who didn't come back home well past the usual time, and they ran back home together. Following day, they were shocked to hear the news on TV that a dismembered body was found in the area, and its head was still missing. In 2005, I was on my military service and just became private first class. One day my mom and grandma paid me a visit. It's not uncommon in such a case that the soldier is granted a day off and permission to go out of the base so that he can enjoy some time with his family in more comfortable environment. Anyway, so I was out and free with my mom and granny. We had a nice dinner and got ourselves a room at a decent hotel. As I wanted to make the most of the free night, I headed to an internet cafe to play some game while mom and granny retired to the room. Guess I missed playing games. When I realized how late it was, time was already passing 3 in the morning. I came to the hotel and found our room door left opened ajar, and the room was empty. I didn't think much of it though. Both mom and granny loved saunas, and perhaps they went to the sauna in the hotel. I was very tired after a midnight watch duty the previous night, bit of alcohol with the dinner and gaming till late, and fell asleep quickly. It was inexplicable chills that woke me up. I opened my eyes and saw a strange man smiling at me with a knife at my throat. After a few seconds, the flight mode kicked in. I kicked the guy away, jumped off the bed. In the room were a woman, a boy, and a girl strewn about, seemingly all dead. Indeed, the girl was missing a hand altogether. I ran all the way down to the front desk, yelling there was a murder in my room. Soon several male staffs rushed to the room and found my mom and grandma sleeping in their room. Turned out I misread the room number and entered the next door, where, 2 months prior, a couple killed their 2 kids and themselves. They accumulated serious amount of debt and made that extreme choice. The hotel didn't give the room to anybody ever since, but that day the cleaning lady forgot to lock it up, and I, by an unlucky chance, went into the room. Were there spirits that still hung around in the room, or was it just an unfortunate coincidence that I had the traumatizingly realistic nightmare? I have an older cousin who is a police officer. He's assigned to take photos of various crime scenes. And he'll tell me sometimes something inexplicable is captured among them. Once he took the photos of a motor accident, and among the numerous shots he took of the victim's body on burst mode, there was a single frame that contained what looked like the victim looking down on his own dead body. It couldn't be anybody else because the clothes and even the hairstyle exactly matched, and in yet another shot showed a dozen strange people gathered around and looking down the victim, all with expressionless face. And there was a case of murder-arson. He took a shot of the curious crowd gathered at the scene, and among them there was one person turning its back to the burnt house. Only when he got to see the photo of the victim, my cousin realized the weird spectator was the victim himself. He speculated the spirit might have been looking at the potential perpetrator, but it didn't really help to solve the case. Another was the photo taken at a suicide scene. Among the shots taken on burst mode, a single shot contained the image of a person on the floor covered with blood. It was clearly not the same person as the dead men found in the scene. People speculated it might be a victim of other previous crime or suicide, but again, there was no concrete answer. The weirdest shot was taken during the reenactment of a murder case. Among many shots of the murderer reenacting the scene, there was one shot that captured some sort of a crack on his face, seemingly revealing the skull behind it. The killer died shortly afterwards of acute pneumonia in the prison. My cousin says by now he just take them as they are. As a newbie officer, he used to report such weird photos to his upper line, but they just laughed and told him not to bother.
By now, I pretend they don't exist too. It's not that I can reveal them to the world either,
he says. One summer in my uni years, I and 3 mates went to a nearby beach for a summer holiday. We lived in Busan, and beaches are nothing new, but being poor students, there weren't that many other options. But once there, we quickly realized we underestimated how difficult it was going to be to find a lodging in the peak season. We checked everywhere, but they had either no vacancy or just too expensive. Our summer holiday was to turn into a lackluster day trip. Then one mate ran over excitedly, shouting that he found a room. It was rather old and shabby lodging. and I guess it's just a benefit of hindsight, but the landlady behaved a bit suspicious as she led us to the room, as if she didn't want to be around there more than absolutely necessary. But the rate was so cheap for a room big enough for a full grown-up man, and we were just happy. Until we opened the door. The air blowing out from the room was chilling as if from a dark cave, despite it was muggy summer day. I think we were all a bit stunned for a second, but soon we joked among ourselves that we wouldn't need an air conditioning or even a fan in that room. For an old shabby lodging, the interior was actually fairly well equipped. It had an ensuite bathroom, TV, little kitchen sink, and an electric fan. We could not complain, really. I first went to the bathroom to wash off the sweat. Surprisingly, the bathroom looked all new. Even the bathroom door was new, though it seemed to have been done in a hurry. The old tap for the shower was still left there next to the new one, for example, and the rough cement finish everywhere. I wondered what the point of renovation was. On top of the rough finish, the bathroom gave off a weird vibe that made me want to go out as soon as possible, that I wasn't alone there. Apparently I wasn't the only one who felt that. As we opened bottles and chatted over this and that, other mates too mentioned the bathroom felt a bit spooky. But soon alcohol took us over, and any dubious thoughts were forgot. As college boys do, we drank till we got so pissed that we passed out one by one. I don't know what time, but I woke up in quiet hours of early morning, needing to pee. It was all the beer I drank. But I found the bathroom door locked. Shit, I was urgent. I knocked and urged to hurry up. There was no response from the inside. After trotting nervously for a few minutes in front of the door, I now knocked a bit louder and rattled the door knob. But there still was no response. A mate should have fallen asleep on the toilet or something, I thought. Now at the limit of my patience, I turned on the light in the room and was baffled, because all three of my mates were there, still deep asleep. The weird vibe I felt in the bathroom earlier all came back to me, and I freaked out. I woke my mates up and explained the situation. Two mates said they were also up to pee at some point and found the bathroom door locked. They just thought one of us was occupying and went out to pee in the yard instead. Listening to all that, the face of the fourth mate froze. He insisted we leave the room right away. And because we all felt it a bit too weird, that we agreed with him. The beach early morning was quiet, and the sea breeze calmed us down. Only then the mate who insisted to leave the room opened his mouth. The night prior, he took a shower and happened to notice the new bathroom door didn't come with a lock to it. It was unusual to see a bathroom door without a lock, that he did a double check on it too. We didn't know what to think. Why couldn't we then open the door? So our little summer holiday ended with a confused note with no clear answers. About a couple of weeks later, an acquaintance invited me to a dinner, and we happened to go to a sashimi restaurant near the same beach. By then the raw, creepy feeling I had was almost all gone, but I still brought up what happened in the lodging to amuse the acquaintance. But then the middle-aged staff of the restaurant, who'd been giving me an eye while I talked about the room with a relish, cut in and told us what was up with the room in question. Exactly a year ago, A middle-aged couple rented a very room for a week at the lodging. Strangely, the man asked the key to the ensuite bathroom. The landlady was suspicious, but anyway handed it to him. The man locked the woman up in the bathroom for 3 days, torturing and abusing her, and in the end, strangled her to death with a shower hose. Outwardly, the man nonchalantly went in and out of the lodging the whole time, and nobody suspected what was going on. Only when the man checked out, the body of the woman was found. Her body bore the terrible signs of abuse all over, and on the bathroom door were signs of the woman having tried to open it desperately. The room was cleaned out, bathroom totally renovated, and a new door with no lock was installed. But soon rumor went around about bizarre things going on in that room. And the restaurant staff herself overheard more than a few times that the unfortunate people who happened to stay in the room complaining. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. As with last week's episode, I hope none of my viewers had any similar experiences as in today's stories. Witnessing the violence and sheer hateful energy of a murder scene, even as a vision or hallucination, would be traumatizing, I'm sure. Why can't we just live in love and peace? I'm sure there would be much less ghosts in the world if we did. If you enjoyed my work, please show me some love via thumbs up and comment, and please consider subscribing to my channel. It's already reaching near the 3rd year, and haven't reached 1,000 subs yet. If you'd support me more directly, I also have a Buy Me a Coffee account. The link's in the description. Buy Me a Coffee supporters get an early access to my new episode. Thank you. I'll come back with something different next Sunday. Stay safe and take care.